when you read the history and you read the, what I learned in Kashmir was do this and do that, and that was about it. But when I went to the States and I had to present to audiences, I had to do a little deeper digging. And there I really learned my religion. What it is, what it's about, what are the ethical issues, how do you deal with people of other communities, and what are the rules and regulations, so on and so forth. So that's my role model number one. Okay. Now, if you look at the history of Islamic medicine, there have been some few folks who are listed as kind of up there. If we had a Nobel Prize, those days they would be winning every Nobel Prize round. Al-Razi in Baghdad, when Baghdad was at its peak. Zahrawi. In fact, we had just last month, a couple of weeks ago, there was a play, which is a live drama, which was focused on, it was called Flight of the Ibis. Ibis is a bird. And it was focused on the history of Cordoba at its peak, how the different faiths worked together, and out of that civilization came folks like Zahrawi. And there was an interfaith panel after that, and I mentioned that the forceps was introduced by Zahrawi, and so many other dental instruments were introduced. And so when you have an environment where there is free exchange, where there's intellectual curiosity, you get things popping up. And that was Ibn Sina, all of you have heard about, one of the greatest physicians of all time. Averroes, a great philosopher, again from that Spanish civilization. And Nafis, in fact I have a special interest in Nafis. I'm a pulmonologist. And one of my early trainees was Ayman Subani from Jordan. Ayman is now a professor of medicine in Michigan. And he dug up some stuff and came out with some original Arabic literature and so on, and wrote a big paper where he pretty much confirmed what most of us knew, that the pulmonary circulation, the coronary circulation, was discovered by Ibn Nafis. Several hundred years before, the gentleman from England, I forget his name now, is credited with discovering the circulation of the blood in the chest. During this time, Razius was the one who differentiated smallpox from chickenpox. And so many other things he did. And one of the interesting things was, we have an organization called the Islamic Medical Association of North America. And at the annual meeting, we have two lectures, designated lectures, a Razi Memorial Lecture and Ibn Sina Lecture. So over a period of time, I have given both of them. The first time I was asked to give the Razi lecture, I said, who's Al-Razi? Because I'd never learned about it in my school. This was absolutely, you learn your textbooks and that's it. There was nothing about history, about Islamic history. So this gentleman he's the guy who introduced what we are using now as case studies, bedside charts, examinations for licensure. He's the guy who did it at that time in Baghdad. And of course at that time the hospitals were especially, some of these slides I have borrowed from Dr. Faith Fitzgerald. You'll remember her visit to King Fahd Medical City. She is one of the leading educators in North America, and we had invited her to King Fahd Medical City to give a talk on Islamic medicine. And here we have a Christian lady from California talking about the history of Islamic medicine. And she has done it in her grand rounds in the university, in other forums. And it was one of the most fascinating talks I've heard. So Faith gave me some of these slides. This is one of the, the Library of Medicine, literature, medicine, books. They were stressed. Intellectual ferment was stressed during that time. This is a very famous hospital in Cairo, Mansour Hospital. Any of you from Mansour here? No. Case reports were introduced there in the 13th century. Bedside teaching, examination for licensure, specialty wards for different ailments, elegant rooms, piped music. Somebody talked about holistic medicine yesterday. That's holistic medicine. Music, soothing, and so on. So, from that time, you could pick a role model. I gave several talks on Ibn Sina and Al-Razi. Those are two folks I look up to, basically, from a long time ago. Now, what happened? This is a very commonly asked question. For those who have studied and know where the Islamic medicine was and where it is now, they say, what happened, guys? I said, we went into coma for 200 years, 300 years. Something happened. We got narcotized, and now we're coming back slowly. Now, if you look at the numbers, and 20% of the world's population is Muslims, even 23%, I would say. Less than 1% scientists. And look what we are following. We are following the folks who introduced algebra, Ibn Sina, astronomy, Omar Khayyam, Al-Razi. So we have a lot of giants to look up to. And somehow we have kind of fallen off the pedestal, but inshallah we're coming back. In this part of the world, this is an older slide. Things have changed a little bit. But again, there's a lot more that needs to be done. So much of the GDP, the gross domestic product, is spent on research and development compared to the rest of the world. The USA spends $33 billion on research and development, of which 37% come from philanthropy. Now, coming from Kashmir, I can tell you that I can go to a person and get any kind of money for a big wedding feast. But I go to the same person and say, could you please designate a hospital ward or a think tank? Forget it. So our focus of where we got to invest our resources, in my view, needs a little redirection. Nothing wrong with having a big event and a big party and so on, but don't sell your land to do that. Okay? If you want to sell your land and invest in a hospital, which will have a sadaqah jariyah. And so anyway, the results are obvious, that we are way behind as far as scientific research and development is concerned at this time. Now, let me now shift gears. I've talked a little bit about history. I'll talk about myself now. As a student, I was in trouble. In the 7th grade, the teachers complained about my behavior in class. It went up to the principal's level. And the principal and my father, who incidentally was one of the first Kashmiris to graduate from Harvard, they had a meeting. And the outcome of that meeting, I think they had two choices: kick him out of school or do something else. Well, they chose the other choice. They said, he's in the 7th grade, let him skip the 8th grade and put him on the 9th grade for the next year. You could do those things those days. They didn't have to get any permissions from anybody. So I landed from 7th to 9th, I skipped 8th. Now what was the reason? In retrospect, I think I was bored in class. I didn't have enough stimulation intellectually. And the principal recognized it, my dad recognized it. They said, okay, let's put a little extra pressure on him. And after that, things straightened out. I was quiet and I had bigger kids to deal with. I had more assignments and my attention got focused. So, if a what's the message here? If a student has trouble, discipline is not the only solution. You need to look at the root cause. What is the root cause? What's causing this kid to do things which are out of the norm? Is it something medical? Is it something, and I'll give you other examples. Is it medical? Is it family issues? What is the reason? And if you get to the root cause, you might have an impact on the life of that kid, as I did with a medical student. And here's the story. So I'm in Nassau County Medical Center. We get third-year medical students from Stony Brook for clerkship for 3 months in medicine. And every time about 8 or 10 kids show up. And every Wednesday I meet with them. Every Wednesday afternoon. This was a given. That time was blocked. And so I would spend time with them, talk about medicine, history, philosophy, whatever they wanted. There was nothing fixed. At the end, there was an examination to help us grade them. So one of the kids, he said, I'm not going to take this exam. I refuse to take this exam. So he was brought to my attention. I brought him into my office. I said, what's the problem? You're going to fail if you don't take the exam. He said, well, a year ago, I was in an automobile accident, motorcycle accident, and I had head trauma, and I think my brain is damaged. I don't want to embarrass myself by failing. I said, all right, fair enough. So I sent him for analysis. So I got this long report about whatever they do with psychology and psychometrics and all this stuff. The bottom line was his brain is not damaged. I said, okay, here, look, brain is not damaged, so you take the exam now. He took the exam, he barely passed, but he passed. And what was amazing, it was like I had switched a light bulb in his head. He was a different human being after that. He came back to thank me, he graduated, he said, you took the time to look at my problem. I could easily have said, fail this kid and send him back. But anyway, he was a different person altogether, because a faculty member took the time to address his medical issue, and that changed his outlook life. Now, as I mentioned yesterday, I had my first experience with, those days these words were not around. This was called systems. So our school adopted, it was a new school in Stony Brook, it adopted the system evaluation, where you basically go organ by organ. So the students came for chest rotation for 3 weeks, and they were in their second year of medical school. They had not gone to the wards. So what are they going to learn? Well, as I mentioned yesterday, I was surprised with how much they could absorb when they are given information in a nice, presentable manner, which they can understand at that level. Another thing I learned in teaching was the importance of feedback. As I mentioned, I used to have this session with the students. I would do the same thing at morning report. If the session was for 1 hour, I would stop at 45 minutes. And if there were 10 kids in the class, I would say, okay, what did you get out of this? What did you get out of this? 1, 2, 3, 4.